Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The dim lighting bathed the room in a subdued atmosphere, with the shadows of the chandeliers sparkling on the marble walls. The white tablecloths were impeccably draped on the tables, and the crystal-clear glasses sparkled like diamonds under the lamps. The air was heavy with the scent of refined dishes, truffles, and slowly reducing sauces. The murmur of conversation mingled with the classical music playing in the background, creating an atmosphere of calm and sophistication. Claire Dubois was just a small part of this vast machinery. She was part of this luxurious decor, a discreet but essential element. At 32, after 5 years in this 5-star restaurant, she had learned to blend into the atmosphere. Her movements were fluid, almost invisible, and her presence, though silent, contributed to the harmony of the whole. She knew the habits of the regular customers, the dishes they preferred, the subtleties of their orders. She knew when to smile, when to remain silent, when to add a light touch of humor or, on the contrary, when to be erased by the slightest gesture. She wasn't what you might call a star waiter. Unlike some waiters who shone with their personality, charisma, or showmanship, Claire had always remained in the shadows, her self-effacing, professional demeanor a discreet veil behind the surrounding luxury. She went unnoticed. Customers considered her a living piece of furniture, like a cup of tea or a hot plate, always there but rarely seen. Claire often told herself that this invisibility, paradoxically, was a form of security. Not being seen meant not being judged, nor confronted with excessive expectations. It was a way of protecting herself in this ruthless world of luxury, where everything related to appearance seemed to be more important than simple humanity. But that evening, that calm was about to be broken, and with it, the tranquility into which Claire had settled. The service was in full swing. Guests were arriving in droves, dressed in tailored suits and evening gowns, surrounded by the aura of those who believed themselves to be on top of the world. The staff busied themselves, hurried and organized, in a silent ballet. That's when he entered.
A rather short man, dressed simply in jeans and a cap, sporting a shy, discreet, almost reticent smile.
He didn't look like a character who would turn heads. On the contrary, he seemed to have the air of a tired passenger looking for a place to land. Claire, who was clearing a nearby table, noticed immediately. Her heart skipped a beat. N'Golo Kanté, I'm Not Afraid, official music video. One of the best midfielders in the world, a humble man, a model of simplicity and elegance. A player Claire admired not only for his exploits on the pitch, but also for his character. She had seen him dozens of times on television, but seeing him in person was different. Something about his demeanor, his apparent calm, his very simplicity, captured the attention in a way few others could. He asked for a table for one, his voice calm, almost timid. His gaze sought to avoid attention, as if he didn't want to disturb. The maitre d', Monsieur Gerard, a slender, well-dressed man, looked him up and down before replying in a dry, distant tone. Sorry, we're full.
Reservations only.
Claire felt a shiver run down her spine. She knew there were tables available, including one at the back of the room, near the kitchen. Wealthy clients generally avoided this spot, as it wasn't elegant enough for their tastes. But for someone like Kanté, a little privacy and quiet seemed to be what he was looking for. She hesitated. The instructions were clear. Never move a customer without a reservation. But her instinct, that of someone who had always prioritized respect and dignity, told her to act differently. She slowly approached the man. Sir, if you'd like, I can seat you in the back. It's not very glamorous, but it will be quiet. Kanté looked at her, a little surprised, but his face lit up with a sincere smile. That suits me just fine, thank you. So Claire sat him down at the discreet table near the kitchen, away from the hustle and bustle of other customers. There was nothing glamorous about the place. The food was often too hot or poorly presented, but she knew it might offer him what he was looking for, peace. She didn't comment, didn't seek attention. Just a hot dish, a glass of water, and a discreet smile. The kind of service she reserved for times when she knew a customer just needed a moment of tranquility, away from the world. She served him silently, respecting his implicit request for discretion, and he ate slowly, savoring each bite with an almost zen-like calm. No words were exchanged, but the connection was there. A simple gesture of humanity. When he left, he stood up, replaced his chair, and quietly left the restaurant. It was only after he left that Claire realized she hadn't even taken a picture or asked for an autograph. He hadn't been an ordinary customer. This moment wasn't destined to become a celebrity memory for her. He had been just a man, an ordinary person, seeking a little serenity in a world where everything seemed designed to shine. The next morning, Claire arrived early, ready for another shift. She had forgotten about the previous day's incident until she was called into the director's office. Mr. Gerard was waiting for her, flanked by his superior, the general manager, who wore a stern expression. "Claire, you have exceeded your duties," said Mr. Gerard, staring at a document on his desk. "This gentleman didn't have a reservation. You ignored an instruction. This is unacceptable." Claire swallowed. She knew her gesture would be taken the wrong way, but she hadn't imagined the situation would escalate to this extent. She tried to explain calmly. But he didn't ask for anything special. He just wanted to eat in peace. "We have an image to preserve," the general manager replied coldly. "This kind of people." He hesitated, before recovering. "He's not one of our regular customers. You are being dismissed for serious misconduct." The word grave echoed in his head like a clap of thunder. Serious misconduct, a simple error of judgment, an act of kindness, transformed into a capital professional error. Her heart sank, her hands trembled slightly. She couldn't believe it.
Anger, frustration, sadness, all mingled in animo uschen el whirlwind.
She left the restaurant with her apron tucked under her arm, feeling smaller than ever. How could a simple act of kindness be punished like this? What Claire didn't know was that Kanté had seen it all. He had observed the furtive glances exchanged between the employees, sensed Monsieur Gerard's hidden irritation, and the bitterness in the maitre d'hôtel's cold words. He had sensed, with rare acuity, the veiled contempt that settled in the air whenever attention was focused on him. But what had struck him above all was the quiet dignity of this waitress. She hadn't seen him as a celebrity, nor as a means of making a name for herself. She hadn't smiled at him like a fan or sought his attention for a photo. She had acted with a purity of intention, a simple gesture of kindness, without expecting anything in return. This humility and sincerity were rare qualities, qualities he could not ignore. He knew well that everything that followed, the coldness in the restaurant and the reaction of his colleagues, was much more than simple errors of judgment. It was a system that rejected what was not compliant. But Claire, for her part, had not been part of this rejection. On the contrary, she had embodied all that was right and human in this world of luxury and appearances. 2 days after the incident, Claire was at home in her small studio apartment in Montreal. She had pushed aside her tears, drowning herself in routine, trying to pick up the pieces of what now felt like a shattered dream. The phone kept ringing, but she had neither the energy nor the inclination to answer it. She didn't want to see who was contacting her, nor to relive the humiliation of being fired. She knew the world was still turning, continuing to revolve around her shattered dreams. Then there was a knock at her door. She stood up, dragging her feet. When she opened the door, she found herself face to face with N'Golo Kanté. He was standing there, dressed simply, without frills, without any ostentatious signs of celebrity. He was the man she had served 2 days earlier, but he was no longer the same man. This one seemed to have something to say to her, something profoundly human. "Hello, my name is N'Golo." His voice was calm, measured, as if each word had been thought through before being spoken. Claire, frozen in the doorway, couldn't believe what she was seeing. She, the invisible waitress, wasn't ready for such a visit. "I heard what happened to you," he continued with a simplicity that disarmed her. "I'm sorry my visit caused you any harm. I'd like to make amends, if you'll allow me." She was speechless, unable to formulate an immediate response. She was overwhelmed by a whirlwind of emotions. It was unreal, this scene, what he had just said. How could a man she had only briefly encountered, in such a seemingly innocuous moment, be so affected by what had happened after she left? Gratitude, embarrassment, surprise, everything mingled in her mind. Kanté, without waiting, continued. I just opened a foundation. It helps struggling young people regain their self-confidence through sports, education, and professional integration. We need honest, sensitive people. You have that sensitivity. I invite you to join our team. Claire felt as if she were being asked to respond to a joke, but looking into Kanté's eyes, she perceived a deep sincerity. This wasn't a joke. It was a plea, a genuine offer, a generous and unexpected gesture. But I don't have any special skills, she stammered, taken aback. He smiled at her, almost humbly, and replied, You have the rarest of skills, your heart in the right place. Claire felt a slight shiver run through her body. It seemed unreal, but the words resonated with her like a truth she had always sought but dared not admit. She wasn't just a waitress. She was someone capable of making a difference, even in the most mundane moments. There, in that small encounter, lay the essence of what she could offer the world. A few weeks later, Claire began working for the Kanté Foundation. She coordinated projects, organized events, and supported young people in their efforts to find employment or embark on a sports career. Listening to their stories and seeing them flourish, she discovered unsuspected talents within herself. This work brought her newfound satisfaction. Every day she felt useful. Every action, every small gesture she made to help others reinforced her sense of worth and accomplishment. She was there for something greater, to transform lives like hers had been, even in the darkest moments. As the months passed, the foundation grew. Claire flourished in this new environment, far removed from the coldness and injustice of a restaurant where she had been a discreet figure, forgotten as soon as she disappeared behind the scenes. One day, a journalist, while preparing a profile of Kanté, asked him how he came up with the idea for this foundation. Kanté simply replied, A waitress treated me with respect in a place where I was once scorned. She reminded me that heroes don't always wear swimsuits. I wanted to build something like that quiet gesture. The journalist, moved by her words, published an article. The video of the interview went viral on social media. Claire was found, and her story resonated, inspiring thousands of people. She became a symbol of dignity, perseverance, and kindness. What Kanté said was no exaggeration. A simple gesture, an act of kindness, could transform lives. The restaurant, for its part, faced a media storm. Accused of discrimination, it lost a large portion of its clientele, and former customers who considered themselves luxury began to turn away, attracted by more inclusive places. The maitre d' was replaced, and the establishment's image cracked. But Claire, for her part, felt no desire for revenge. She had nothing to prove. She had no need to bring down those who had judged her. She had found something far more precious than revenge. A new beginning. Years later, Claire ran several youth shelters in the suburbs, a support network she had developed with the help of the Kanté Foundation. She trained new staff, implemented educational programs, and continued to inspire those who, like her, had been invisible to society. When asked if she regretted losing her old job, she smiled, this time with profound serenity.
Y lost a hope.
But I found my way. And in his eyes shone the conviction that sometimes the most beautiful trajectories are born from the most unexpected moments.